Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Peace be upon you and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a short but incredibly packed passage from the Quran's second chapter, Surah Al-Baqarah. You know, these few verses from 188 to 195, they really lay out this amazing vision for a just and balanced society. So let's explore how these verses build that blueprint, piece by piece.
It's a great question to start with, isn't it? How can a text this old manage to lay out rules for pretty much everything, from your personal finances all the way to the ethics of war? In just a few lines, it flows from one to the other, and we're going to see how all these seemingly separate topics are actually woven together into this one really elegant framework.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with a little bit of context. Then we'll jump into the core ideas around money and worship, the ethics of conflict, and why generosity is so important. And then at the end, we'll pull it all together and find that one thread that connects everything.
So to really get these verses, you have to kind of transport yourself back in time to early Medina. The very first Muslim community, they just fled persecution, and now they're trying to build a brand new society from scratch. They needed rules, foundational principles. And that's exactly what these verses gave them, a blueprint for justice and fairness.
So where does this grand blueprint for society even begin? Well, you might think it would start with big laws for the government, but it doesn't. It starts with you, with the individual. The first pillar is all about having integrity in our day-to-day lives, and that starts with two things: how we handle our money and how we approach our worship.
Verse 188 just gets straight to the point. It says, don't consume wealth unjustly. Now that's a huge umbrella term. It covers theft, fraud, shady business deals, you name it. But then it gets super specific. Don't use your money to bribe judges to get something that you know isn't yours. And here's the real kicker. The verse ends by saying you do this while you know. It's not a mistake, it's a deliberate act, and that kind of corruption just poisons the whole system. Okay, so from money, the next verse pivots to worship and ritual. Apparently, some people back then had this weird, superstitious custom of not using their front door during pilgrimage. They'd enter from the back. The Quran uses this as a perfect example to make a bigger point. It's basically saying, hey, righteousness isn't about these empty, quirky rituals. True righteousness is about doing things the right way, with the right intention, guided by a real awareness of God. It's all about substance over form.
And that substance is captured in this one massive concept, taqwa. Now, you'll often hear it translated as fear of God, but it's so much richer than that. Think of it more like God consciousness. It's this constant awareness, this state of being mindful of God in everything you do. And the Quran says this is the real measure of a person. It's like an internal compass that guides you, whether you're making a business deal or you're praying.
So, after setting the foundation with individual integrity, the verses then zoom out to the community level, and they tackle one of the toughest topics there is: conflict. Now, it is absolutely crucial to get this right. This is not a call to aggression. It's a code of conduct for those extreme situations where fighting becomes the only option left.
And this verse right here is the golden rule. The permission to fight is strictly, and I mean strictly, defensive. You engage those who fight you. But even then, right in the same breath, comes this powerful command, but do not transgress. Don't cross the line. It sets boundaries from the get-go. Even a justified war is not a free-for-all.
Now, to understand why fighting would even be permitted, we have to understand this word, fitna. In this specific context, it means persecution. We're talking about a kind of systemic oppression that's so bad, it's literally driving people from their homes, forcing them to abandon their faith, and taking away their freedom to worship. The verse says this kind of persecution is actually worse than killing, because it doesn't just end a life, it tries to crush the human spirit.
Okay, so if fighting is allowed to stop that kind of severe persecution, what are the actual rules? The Quran doesn't just hand over a permission slip and walk away. It immediately lays down a very clear, very strict ethical code.
Just look at the incredible balance here. On the one hand, you have this principle of reciprocity, a just response. Expel them from wherever they have expelled you. But then, immediately, in the very next sentence, you get the off-ramp. And if they cease, if they stop the aggression, then it's over. You stop too. Mercy has to win out over revenge.
So we can really boil this whole code of conduct down into 4 simple principles. 1, it has to be defensive. You only fight people who are actively fighting you. 2, your response must be proportional. 3, you have to respect sanctuaries. You don't start fights in sacred places. And 4, and this is maybe the most important, the moment they stop, you stop. It's a framework that is all about restraint.
And that brings us to the final pillar in this blueprint. Think about it. A community that's either building itself up or defending itself and needs resources to survive. This last piece is all about how you sustain the community, both financially and spiritually, through smart, purposeful spending.
You know, the verse says, "Do not throw yourselves with your own hands into destruction." And what's so brilliant is that this works two ways. On one side, you can cause destruction by being stingy, by holding back your money and effort when the community desperately needs it. But you can also cause destruction on the other side, by spending so recklessly that you end up hurting yourself and your own family. So the command is for this balanced, wise generosity, a middle path between two kinds of ruin.
And the verse caps it all off by commanding ihsan. Oh, this is such a beautiful idea. It means excellence. It means to do good in the best way you possibly can. It's about going beyond just checking the boxes. In charity, it means giving wisely, with dignity, without making a big show of it. This is the ultimate goal, the thing that elevates every other action we've just talked about.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground, from personal finance to ritual to the rules of war. So what's the big picture? What's the thread that ties all of this together? Let's quickly recap the key takeaways.
At the end of the day, it's pretty clear. A just society is built on a foundation of financial integrity. Real righteousness, it comes from that inner God consciousness, that taqwa, not just going through the motions. If conflict ever becomes necessary, it is tightly controlled. The community is held together by a generosity that's both wise and purposeful. And the goal through it all? To achieve ihsan, excellence in everything we do for God and for each other.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This blueprint, written 1,400 years ago, asks for something that's really hard. It demands the courage to stand up to injustice, for sure, but at the same time, it demands the incredible restraint to never cross our own ethical lines while we do it. In our world today, a world that so often pushes us to extremes, maybe there's something we can learn from a path that champions that difficult but truly beautiful middle way.